Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy.
I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string.
With our powers combined,
no stone is left unturned.
And no buddy is left behind.
Do you like relaxing thoughts? Do you like cats purring on your lap because they love you? Try Karma. It's the breeze in your hair on the weekend. Welcome to Dispatch. What's on call this week?
This week we are discussing Season 2, Episode 5, Awful People, written by Kristen Rydell, directed by Kevin Hooks. And it originally aired on Monday, October 15th, 2018.
So we get a number of calls during the episode, obviously. I don't know why I open it with that every time. Shocking.
Calls?
We get calls.
There are 911 calls? On 911?
What? Amazing.
Who would have thunk?
I need to come up with a better transition for that one. The calls of the week are, crime doesn't pay, but insurance might. So the con artist formerly known as the Porch Pirate has returned to a life of crime, but she upgraded her package stealing ways to staging accidents so she can collect insurance money. However, the jig is up when she gets hit and run over by a car for real. The next one is
for reals.
For realsies. The next one is Methinks Thou Doth Protest Too Much, where a bigoted man protesting a military funeral shows his true colors when he experiences a medical emergency and refuses help from Hen, Chimney, and Eddie, the people of color on the 118. Quite lovely. The next one is Kitchen Nightmares, where Maddie and Athena encounter a man who has been shot in the kitchen of a restaurant after 911 hung up on him. And then we see Truth or Dare, D-A-R-E, like the drug prevention program for those in the United States. Hen calls 911 when she catches Ava overdosing. And the last one is The Call Came From Inside the House, where dispatcher Gloria experiences the other side of things when she ends up in a car accident. I tried to make those not too funny because they're awful people.
They were pretty funny.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I love, what is it? The con artist formerly known as the Porch Pirate. I love that.
Thank you. Sometimes my brain does funny things. So this was an interesting episode. So we're 2 episodes out from the main earthquake opening catastrophes, right? So this is like, I guess technically kind of like the second or third like typical episode in the season, but it still doesn't really feel like a typical kind of episode because there's not a lot going on for our characters. I mean, there's a lot going on, but not in terms of like personal development, kind of is what I took away from it.
No, like there's not, I mean, in character arcs, we're talking about both character arcs, but we're talking about how the things that are happening to them and the things that they're doing in that episode, how it is developing them, how they're moving forward, or how it's pushing them backward, how it's doing something to them, and how that plays out like in their character arc in the episode and the season, and how we know them. And I just feel like there's not anything there.
Yeah, it's like whatever is there, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but like whatever is there, it's like reactionary. It like is something for the characters to react to, so they're not being very like proactive about things, really.
It's very much just them doing their jobs, and it's not, like, with the exception of Hen. Hen's the only person who really has anything happen in their character.
Exactly.
Everything else, like it's cute to see Maddie and Athena together and to, like, have the ride along and everything, but it's just, like, it very much feels like a filler episode, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. It's just hard for us in what we're doing on this show, specifically. Yeah.
Like, I love filler episodes, but I also love when a filler episode can be, like, have a little more, like, more depth in it.
Sometimes this show does a really good job of having more character growth in filler episodes.
Yeah. Which
So this is just a weird one.
Which is not to say that this is a bad episode. It's just, I don't feel like it's one of the stronger ones. I don't want to be like super negative, but just kind of like critiquing. That's all. I think this episode, its strength lies in what it presents thematically rather than in the plot of the episode, if that makes sense. Or if that resonates.
It's kind of like the only thing that overall like had impact and like further meaning.
Yeah. So we'll get into that.
Sounds very critical, but we're just kind of explaining how like we're a deep dive podcast and there's not much to deep dive into for this one specifically.
But I also feel like it was the only opportunity for, to have her be introduced to Athena and Bobby, because I don't think there's going to be much of that. Aside from
it did work on that level
a little bit. Yeah, because I think the next episode does the same thing. So that's where she meets Chimney and Eddie. So all the people. So it's kind of like a two-parter introduction to the other characters, I would say. And then there's also maybe not a lot of character development, but I do see like her standing up for herself, I guess. Because she's still new to that job, and like she has technically three mentors on the job. Because there's Josh, there's Athena, and there's also Gloria, who was obviously not the best example. Spoiler alert. And then everything turns back around. In summary, like turns back around on her, and it's like a confrontation and all of this, like all of that. So there is some development. Some. Not a lot.
Oh yeah.
Some.
We're gonna need the jaws of life over here.
So before we really get into that, I think there are just a couple things in Jaws of Life, our deep dive, that I thought were of note. The first is an article from The Wrap that was published. It was actually published on the day of the premiere. So that was Sunday, September 23rd. That was the first part of their premiere. And the title was 911 Chief Talks Supersized 70s disaster movie style premiere, rescuing awful people in season 2. So I thought that was interesting that it was they dropped like the title for episode 5, probably before they had maybe solidified it. And it's definitely something that I picked up on that we picked up on in the pilot or the second episode, I think rather in the hotel, how the persnickety lady who ended up being like Wicked Witch and the really terrible, icky, yucky boss, and how they kind of got their comeuppance a little bit because they didn't survive. So this was Tim Minear talking about the beginning of season 2. And I have a couple quotes that I thought were fun. So he says, one of the best things about season 2 for Minear so far is dealing with the worst victims imaginable. And he goes on to say, the episode after the earthquake is called Awful People. And, so I guess they did know the title. Never mind. The episode after the earthquake is called Awful People. And it just interested me to think about first responders. It doesn't matter who calls 911. They go and they do their job, right? Minear said. And not everyone is going to be a wonderful victim who is worthy of saving. Often people are just awful and ungrateful. Our responders have to deal with that too. So I sort of wrote that as a theme. I love exploring the different parts of what that is. So I think that was very fun that he kind of was putting this into motion in the very beginning of the season. And like, we're just kind of so I guess on that aspect, I kind of understand why this one is so like thematically driven, because it's kind of culminating a little bit of what we've seen in like 3 or 4 episodes. Another quote that he had was, he loves that his characters are unambiguously heroic, moral people who put their lives on the line and rush into danger and save strangers. Which I think we can all say is like all of the 118, all of our fire fam, they are good people, like capital G, good people. right? They may not do great things sometimes, but they are like, they're good people. They're very heroic. So I can understand his interest in putting, these generally good people who are helping their community, serving their community, no matter if the person that they're serving is kind of terrible and they have to do it anyways. It's part of the job. And just another mention of the 70s disaster movie style openings. Like, I think that's his like signature at this point.
Yeah.
Like, what was I saying earlier? I think Tim Minear has like this giant binder of like 70s disaster movie like references and things that they could do, and he just like flips to it one day is like, yes, this one. Okay, so that was the press that I found for this week or this episode, and there were a couple other things for my red string corner that I thought I should point out. One thing that I want to continuously do as we watch more episodes and we get further into the series is kind of highlight a little bit of what we're seeing from the writers or the directors, that we are getting to know their styles a little bit more. So this episode was written by Kristen Rydell, and she also wrote 108, which was Karma's a Bitch. And I thought that was quite thematically cohesive with this episode. There's a lot of connective tissue in both of these episodes, and we also get the return of the porch pirate lady who was introduced in Karma's a Bitch. So this is like the first time that we see someone that the 118 has helped kind of come back in another episode or another season. Just as a reminder, because this is going to be very relevant. So 108, Karma's a Bitch, directly followed 107, which was the Full Moon Creepy AF, which was the entire Hen and Ava cheating arc and all of that. Really good, wonderful stuff that we loved so much. So much in the first season.
Other than that was a great episode. the Full Moon one.
No, the Full Moon was a great episode. We are not particular fans of
the cheating storyline.
The cheating storyline for Hen.
No.
But so again, this will be very relevant.
Really make sense for her character. I'm sorry.
I know. We know.
It doesn't. We'll talk about it later.
But it is what it is.
Remind me, because like I said, I watch these episodes. They go in through one ear and out the other, or in my brain, one through one door and out the other, like immediately after watching it. So remind me, at the end of Karma's a Bitch, that's when Karen finds out about Eva, right? Or was that another episode?
Yes,
that was when like Hen came home to finally tell her, and she didn't have to because Karen was like looking at it's not a lawsuit, it's like filing, it was like some sort of like
legal papers. Yes,
I don't think I have the red string over here, but like I was just like, oh, that's an interesting thing, because Kristen did not introduce Eva. I just think it was interesting that it ends with Karen finding out and confronting Hen, and then like there's a scene in this episode where they address like Hen bringing Eva back into their lives, even though like in Karen's head she knows that she's sorry and all that. So I thought that's interesting with like the connecting of the things.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of feel like in the 2 episodes that we've seen from Kristen Rydell so far, it's a lot of like very similarly themed stuff with like a heavy focus on bad things happening to bad people, right? So there's a lot of, I think one of the themes in that episode that we talked about was hubris, like the hubris of man. So like thinking that they are better than everything and just kind of like taking them down a peg a little bit. So I'm probably going to be referring to Karma a lot in this episode, because I think it just like it kind of goes hand in hand.
I also had like I had a note here. I was I just wrote, feels like her work is making families go through it. And then there's that whole like tidbit, if you have watched 911 all the way through, it's the whole like redemption arc for certain family members that don't deserve it. So those are some of the things that I've noted from Kristen Rydell in her writing specifically.
Also, there's like 2 more points that I want to point out, and then we can get into themes. I thought there was a little bit of foreshadowing, right? With we see at the very beginning at that first call with the former porch pirate, now insurance fraud lady. Lorraine is her name. Buck is driving the engine, and I thought that was real cute. And also at the same call, Lorraine was implying that she got improper care at that original scene in season 1. And Hen is all, oh, so you're gonna sue us now? And Lorraine says, not the paramedics, because you guys don't make enough money, but this because you're city employees, but the city. And I just thought that could be a little bit of foreshadowy, putting in our brains the idea of suing the city, the department, something like that. Just kind of like a little nugget, a little seed planted.
Yes, my favorite. Take my root. Favorite storyline.
I know. So there's precedent for that. And then one more thing, which I thought was really cool. And I don't know, I think we probably knew it in passing, but I did fact check it just in case. So at the funeral protest scene, Eddie has this incredible zinger. You know, the guy who's experiencing the emergency. Yeah. Is like refusing care from Hen and Chimney and Eddie because they're people of color, and he's like super racist. And Eddie's all like, my father's from Mexico, but my mother's Swedish. I can help you out with the Swedish half, but nobody told me which half that is. Which was like one classic Eddie sassy, right? But also,
and then the classic Eddie hands. Yeah, like he just does that in such a specific way.
What do you want me to do? Nobody told me which half. So it's so sarcastic, so sassy. I love it. But a little bit of art imitating life, because Ryan lore dropped. Everybody probably knows this already, but he is also Mexican on his father's side. His father is also named Ramon in real life, and his father in the show is named Ramon. So I don't know if they did that on purpose or not. But Ryan's mother is also of English, German, French, Dutch, and Swedish descent. And I think that just gives more evidence that Eddie was pretty much written Ryan.
For him.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fun. Just like, a little nugget in there.
I forgot that this is when we got that lore drop.
Yeah. I feel like there was like
that's so specific to have like for a character that it's like would almost have to be taken from real life.
Yeah. And there's other stuff too, like the MMA. Is it mixed martial arts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or is it boxing? Well, whichever. They're adjacent. Both. Yeah.
He does both, I think.
Let's do themes, which is like the big part of this episode. And
let's go.
We're dancing?
I guess.
As this episode is all about awful people, what makes someone awful is kind of a question that the episode presents. A lot of times, prejudices or selfishness or lack of perspective or like thinking of other people. And that's generally what makes someone like a not good person, actually. And part of the closing monologue, I thought was of note. It said, people can be cruel and selfish, never thinking about who they hurt or what kind of damage they might leave in their wake. So that is essentially what they're saying is an awful person, like someone who's cruel, selfish, all that stuff. But not everyone is awful. And there are good ones out there, and the kind who want to do the right thing. So not every person is an awful person.
Good people can do awful things.
Yeah. In that vein, good people can do bad things. Like when it's saying, like over voiceover, there are good ones out there, the kind who want to do the right thing. There's a shot of Bobby Someone who we know is a very good person and wants to do right things is still trying to very much overcome the bad things that he did. So we wouldn't lump him in with the awful people because he doesn't have prejudice. He doesn't have selfishness. He just does bad thing a little bit. And kind of in that vein, another theme is like walking a mile in someone else's shoes. So that can be from developing a new perspective, like seeing things from someone else's point of view, putting yourself in their shoes. That's redundant, but but also in a more literal way, like the way that Maddie goes on the ride along with Athena. So she's seeing all different aspects of a call. So because she was a nurse previously, she got to see once, the call was finished and they're transferred over to the hospital. She's been in dispatch now, so she sees how the call goes, but she's never been like at that pivotal middle, like central point where she's on the scene and actually seeing things, transpire. And so kind of like getting a full picture that way, I think is a good way to think about it, or being on the other side of something. So we see that also with Gloria because she was a dispatcher, but she's never been on the other side as someone who is requiring help in an emergency herself. And then there's also like giving people the benefit of the doubt. So even if they're awful people, do they deserve like a benefit of the doubt sort of thing? And I think this kind of connects like the are people capable of change theme a little bit to what we saw in 105, which was point of origin. And I think that actually is just occurring to me. That is where we see Ava for the first time. I believe when we're introduced to Ava, when she asks Hen to speak on her parole hearing, which was like the whole, we were talking about like the superhero personas. But it thematically, that episode also asked the question, if people are all works in progress, how can we fully know anybody? So there's that idea here of like someone can maybe an awful person, but maybe there's a little more to it. Like there might be a reason why they're awful. And do they deserve redemption? I think redemption is, I think you said Sil earlier, is a marker in Kristen Rydell's work as well. So it would make sense that it's kind of asking these questions a little bit. So like redemption ? Are they deserving of it? Depends. And kind of like looking under, like some people, you get what you get. It's like face value. They're just an awful person, just like cut and dry. But for some people, there may be more reasons underneath the surface, and or they may present a facade, which is different from what they are. Kind of like Gloria, where she presents this like she's got it all figured out. She's the sweet old lady who like bakes muffins, and it's like it's not actually. She didn't bake those. She just bought them. I think
that's a symbolism right there.
Like,
yeah. Oh, you made the brownies. No, actually, I just bought them. Like there you go. Like that should have been the hint that she is not the great person. She's not the sweet grandma, basically.
Exactly. That was the first red flag. I put that in my notes.
Yeah.
And so to like bring that back to that closing monologue, there was a line in there that said, "You'll never know what kind of person someone is unless you give them a chance to show you. Maybe they'll surprise you in the best way." So I think this is kind of like, maybe people can change. Maybe you should give them a chance, but also keep in mind there are awful people around. And then I thought of kind of like one more theme that was maybe a little more divorced from these other ones, and it was not letting things get to you. So I think in the same kind of way that we've been talking about compartmentalization for the first 4 episodes of this season, I think it continues in this episode as well, as like compartmentalization as part of the job, right? So like Gloria says at the beginning, you can't control someone else's behavior, but you can control how you react to it. And just like keeping things like this is a lot of what I think Maddie learns. And it's just like how to not let things get to you on the job so that you can continue to do your job well. And it's just that kind of like continuation of letting go. And I think season 2 is all about letting go of things that do not serve you when you're on the job. The last little line from the closing monologue is our lives are shaped not just by our experiences, but by relationships, who we love, who loves us. And the stronger those ties are, the less awful everything else seems. So that is also very indicative of support systems, which we have also been talking a lot about. The support systems help you like let things not get to you.
Who's cooking?
All right. So let's start getting into character arcs. And I guess we'll talk about Maddie.
Maddie.
I feel like every time we say anyone's name with like a Y or an IE at the end, it's like Bobby. Maddie. Just like little British people. Like we just mentioned, I think Maddie's main purpose in this episode is learning how to not let things get to her, right? Because when we see her initially, she's on a call that is someone who is blatantly just like stupidly rude, and it's kind of getting under her skin a little bit, and she just like she has like the wherewithal to like once that call is done to just kind of like, oh, okay, walk away, take a breath, like take a breather and regroup a little bit. So I think she does have some of these like coping mechanisms and coping strategies, which she probably had to develop in
Nursing.
her experience as a nurse. Yeah, because like that's another thing that you're dealing with people who are not always their best selves. Right. And I guess that's another way that like people have to be given the benefit of the doubt because like they're having an emergency. So like they're panicked and things aren't like quite logical. So they really have to depend on the dispatch people to keep everything cool, calm, and collected. But like they're human too. So Maddie understandably gets a little like flustered and frustrated and just has to like take a moment. And this is where we meet Gloria, who is, for all
intents and purposes, she looks like a sweet old lady, but she's not.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah, Gloria. Like I mentioned before, like the whole here have a muffin, or was it a muffin? Yeah, here have a muffin.
It was a muffin.
They're paleo, and then Maddie's all like, oh, but like. Sorry, I don't know what that noise was.
She was kind of doing that though, like, oh, thank you, I really needed that.
Yeah, but yeah, no, that's a red flag. Like, I mean, if I had a sweet old lady at my job offering me baked goods, I would automatically think that she had made them, but she didn't. She did not. She bought them. She just presented it. She presented it like she's presenting herself as a sweet person.
Exactly, but it does interest me though. Sorry, what?
Sorry, rotten.
Oh, I think the apple's rotten right to the core. Sorry. It's interesting though that like Gloria, who does present this like very perfect, put together older lady, like kind of is the first to like break the facade a little bit when she admits to Maddie. And I don't know if it's interesting that she admits that she didn't bake them at first to Maddie in the first place. Like, is it more of a, I'm relatable. I didn't actually bake those. But I think that's what it's supposed to be. But it is also kind of like, oh, that's the red flag because you're letting everybody else believe that you baked them.
Yeah, and she's letting everyone else believe that she's this great person. I mean, Josh comes in, he's like, oh yeah, she's like, this place is Celine Dion, or Yeah, like it's just this facade that she has. And then like you quickly see when they start her montage of how she answers calls. Like the first one is, okay, that's great. Okay, so she's like perfect. And then it starts derailing. It goes downhill from there. And that's when you're like,
very quickly.
Ma'am, this is not what you should be doing.
This is a Wendy's.
God, there's like so many things that are so out of pocket that she says that I wish I had written them down. But
I didn't write them down either, but like she is harsh. And it's just like, geez, Louise, like I thought you were this sweet older lady. And it's like she has it all figured out, but she doesn't abide by the practice. And it's like a complete personality switch, which also kind of made me think about 107, like the full moon creepy AF, because of like the things that people wouldn't normally do, but they do under a full moon. So it's kind of like that dichotomy.
Didn't we make a joke at some point in season 1 that Abby was trained by her?
Yeah.
I feel like, did I do that? I feel like I did that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Because of like the chicken nugget call.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah. She was,
or like she went to the school of glory.
Exceedingly firm.
She was like, what did Abby say something about? Like, just eat your fucking chicken nuggets, basically. Get off my line.
Eat your nuggets, get some perspective. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and get off my line. Yeah, no, she definitely went into the school of Gloria.
I mean, get some perspective is like very on theme with this today, so.
Yeah. To get off my line. I feel like you're still not supposed to do that.
No.
That's why we made the joke. Like the get some perspective. That's probably not true. I'll come back to the ride along with Athena in a minute. But, you know, eventually when Maddie finds out about Gloria's true nature and it comes as such a shock, Maddie does the right thing and like lets people know that Gloria's been doing like all of these really terrible things because that's going completely against what like dispatch and a first responder is supposed to do, which is like actively harming people, right? Like hanging up on people. So Gloria like completely blows up and just like snaps, right? So she has this like mental break and just like really coming at Maddie. But what Gloria says is something to the effect of like,
she goes on this whole thing about like how you know, people are rude and they're terrible and they're awful and you know, they never she's so weird about it. She's like, they don't ask how you're doing. I'm like,
it's because she's
calling 911.
Exactly. She's like projecting because like her husband like left her for her sister. Wow, her sister. But like, but yeah, even I said no. My note is like, girl, they are calling for help. Like,
it's like they're not calling to chat. Down. Like, hey, how are you?
You're not working at a Wendy's. You're working at 911 dispatch.
Yeah, she really does have like a warped like sense, like perspective from her, because we know like she's not just getting rid of the awful, dumb like people, because she hung up on the restaurant worker who got shot.
And she knows that he got shot. She literally says it on the line, on the recording.
It's also more than mildly racist.
Yeah.
Several times when she's talking about all the different languages. Oh, you're speaking a different language. Like, there's several comments, not just about that guy.
It's like, oh, you just switched to a different language? Like, bro.
Like, he's bleeding out.
I'm so annoyed because you still could have dispatched someone. Yeah. You literally said that, don't yell at me because you're bleeding. I'm not the one who shot you. Like, are you kidding me? That is grounds for a firing.
It's like when she's like in the car, like talking to Maddie when she doesn't even know that Maddie's still there. She's like basically trying to say that her real reason for doing it was because of dead end calls where like the phone goes silent and you like know that like the person's gonna die. And I'm like, then just get a new job, man. Like if you can't handle it anymore because of other stuff going on in your life, take a leave, take a personal, leave, get a different job. Like, I just don't understand like how you can justify that to yourself.
It's interesting because we see in episodes down the line that they do the same to Maddie. I mean, they basically said what you just described to Maddie. Take a break, do this, do that, because she's obviously going through it. And I'm like, did no one check up on this lady at all? Considering that they knew.
Mandated therapy.
But considering they knew, like, 8 months prior, she lost her husband to her sister. Which is also funny because she says she does this thing where she kind of does that fake out where it's implied to Maddie that her husband is gone. Like,
to
Maddie
a better place, they tell me.
And like, actually, here's the truth. So there's 2 red flags in that beginning.
It's been at least 8 months that she's been performing this way on the job, right? So I find it crazy that, like, someone had to have died, at least someone. And, like, then police are involved at that point, and they wouldn't, like, look at like, I just find it really weird and hard to believe that, like, there would be no investigation into, like, drop 911 calls. It's just super strange to me. Also, wonder if she has to go to jail because that's like accessory to murder.
Well, they did. Josh did say at one point, like there is precedent. Someone, I don't know, I didn't look up if this was like true or not, but like there was a dispatcher who was like interfering with calls, and they went to jail for like
basically
15 months or something like that. So I don't know if that's like a real thing, or 18, excuse me. Yeah. So like the accident is very interesting because we like learned the true reason for why Gloria is doing this. So it's like, it's that insight into why she's an awful person. And I don't know if it's like to garner sympathy, or like specifically to garner sympathy, or just to be like, people are multifaceted and like not always are people awful just because they're awful. Like sometimes there's a reason for awful, but that doesn't justify the awful things that she did. It really shows the moral high ground that Maddie has, because again, she's again doing the right thing by staying on the call and sending out, an engine to like finding out where Gloria is and sending out the engine. Actually, I think it's interesting that Maddie and Hen are faced with such interesting choices that they have to make, where they could kind of just stand there and not act. Like I said earlier, I think a lot of this episode is reactionary, but these are the 2 like proactive things that these characters are able to do. So like for both of them, Hen and Maddie are faced with a choice, and they can choose to not do anything, and bad thing, or like it's kind of the difference between life and death essentially, but like also quite literally. And they think about it, or they like weigh it briefly, and then they end up doing the right thing, and the thing that they are supposed to be doing anyways. But just the fact that I think they're given this choice, they're faced with this choice, and they still choose to do the right thing, that really does show that like they're not awful. They're obviously not awful people, really putting that stuff away in order to do what they do best, which is help people. I don't know if Gloria then would have some sort of like come to Jesus moment about like, oh, I've been so awful, and now someone showed me the kindness that like I did not show them. And like, I don't know if it was a redemption arc, but it kind of like, it introduced a little bit of nuance or gray morality. So like you get the awful people who are just plain awful, and then you get the good people, and then you get the good people who do not great things with stuff like Bobby and Hen, and then you get the awful people who may not be as awful as you think. So there's like,
or they don't mean to be awful.
Exactly. So there's the kind of this like spectrum where we see people align on like the morality scale a little bit. And it's like, it makes me wonder, like, is that sympathy or that sympathetic explanation for how someone is the way that they came to be, is that enough for a redemption arc? Because it becomes a little more like hurt people, you know? So like there's a reason they're like this. Like when we see Nathaniel later on, like he did some not good things, but he turned things around and now he's a good person again.
I feel like as long as there's like a thread of change for the better, I think that's my stance for that.
I think it really depends for me personally on if the shit that you did that affected other people, if there was malintent or like not a disregard, because like that's just a not thinking about other people and you come back from like being selfish, obviously.
Right.
But just like not giving a shit. Like not giving a shit in a way that like you don't care. Like you just legitimately don't care how your actions affect others rather than being like unaware of how or like not thinking about how it's going to. But like just
being
doing
actively harmful as opposed to like
right. And so just
ignorant.
being like, well, I'm going to do this. It could hurt people, but I don't care. Like they just don't care like what the ramifications of what they're doing does. And that's so for Gloria, to me, not redeemable. So sorry you're going through a divorce. You're not special. You're not special. Sorry. That's my line for like everyone. It's like, you're not the only person in the world who's ever had to deal with this set of circumstances. So like you doing things in a way that is like actively hurting other people because you can't like find a healthy way to deal with your shit.
To not let things get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. It's funny that, you know, she's basically the one who is helping Maddie or is trying to give her advice about not letting people get to you, or like basically saying like, oh yeah, I go through. Yeah. And I go through this all the time. And yeah, that's what she does. She let things in her personal life get to her.
And that's really shown because she like doesn't stop bugging Maddie, like after Maddie essentially gets her fired, or just brings it to
she's harassing her.
Exactly.
Snitches get stitches.
That was so unserious.
Okay, wait.
It was unhinged behavior is what that was. That was like veering into horror.
Yeah.
Gonna hunt her down and fucking murder her.
I literally thought.
Exactly. That's a slasher trope.
I literally thought that she was gonna show up one night and like slit her throat or something. Like that's how deranged she was after that breakdown. Which actually is interesting because I feel like it could be a little bit of like foreshadowing for the whole like Doug thing that's gonna happen several episodes later. So.
No, I totally are picking up what you're putting down. It is interesting then that like she uses the system to her advantage to continue harassing Maddie. Where like when she's in the car and she calls Maddie's direct line, because of like these lies that she puts forward again, this like persona facade. She's like, oh, I made up this officer, and just like taking advantage. So that is. I guess like continual malintent, like just bad acting.
Well, just imagine if she was a nurse or a doctor and was doing this.
I mean that's
malpractice. That's going to jail. So it's the same idea because people's lives are in your hands, literally. And that's the job. And if you can't do the job, then you need to go.
Yeah. And it's just like, I still grapple with the fact that then, because it is very like irredeemable and because she did active harm to people, like why there was so much emphasis on like this sympathetic explanation and like her reasons why she was doing all of that. But it was mostly for like Maddie's arc, I guess.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be sympathetic to general audiences, but not to me. Get wrecked, literally, and she did.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, sorry, like that was a delayed reaction. I just
Oh my god.
Wow. Woo.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Ooh.
I mean, karma.
I guess it was like mostly to pull at like Maddie's heartstrings. I feel like they didn't even need to have to do that because Maddie would do the right thing either way.
Anyway. Yep.
Mhm.
So like it wasn't necessary to make Maddie do the right thing. It was just necessary for like the viewers to be like, oh, there's some nuance, I guess.
Yeah, but I also think like it was kind of like, because again, like she's learning not to let awful people get to her. So like at that point, she's like, Gloria is basically threatening her. Like she's just trying to do her job, especially during that call. Yeah. And it's like, even though she knows that this lady is awful, she's threatening her. She's still going to do the right thing. And that's how, I guess that's how she learns, because she didn't walk away from that. Well, she wasn't going to walk from that, period. But like she didn't, it was supposed to be like, I guess, a full circle type of moment type of thing for her.
I think it should be noted that like her real mentor in this episode is Athena.
Yeah.
And she even says like at the end, like with her mic drop before she gets in the elevator, the same thing that Athena said to her like earlier in the episode about like, if I let people bother me, like
I want to make it past breakfast.
I wouldn't get anything done. Yeah, exactly. So
WWAD, what would Athena do?
And
I think that is like
it's a good lesson, because like I can see Maddie especially like being a Buckley and being very hypersensitive and emotional like her brother, how like it would be very hard to like be in a position where like it's hard for her to like empathize with people being horrible because she's not like seeing what's happening, so there's like a disconnect. So I think that ride along would have helped regardless, but like Athena is just imparting wisdom everywhere she goes.
She really does.
I mean, speaking of that ride along, one thing that I did notice was like how at some point Athena was the one on the ride along, because with the guy that got shot in the restaurant.
Oh yeah.
Maddie skillfully, like obviously she didn't forget her nursing skills. Like she was able to help patch him up, keep him alive for first responders to get there. But like she's telling Athena what to do or how to help. Yeah. So that role reversal, I found that really interesting and stood out to me.
It did to me too. I really liked having that moment with both of them because it was like such an equal exchange of partnership there, where they were just another example of people having each other's backs, like so easy. It was so effortless that oh man. I got you with that one, huh?
You mentioned it's not even sober.
That's just the 911 theme.
Yeah,
I know.
It's just the 911 theme.
But they say
a thesis statement.
But they say
But it's also really easy for the Buckleys to do. Let's be real. But yeah, so like the whole thing with at the restaurant, like Athena is the one who's like her spidey senses are tingling, right? And she like stops Maddie from going in and kind of like clears the scene, trying to figure out what's wrong. And then when they find the restaurant worker who's been shot, she like immediately allows Maddie to take control of the situation because she knows Maddie, like that's in her wheelhouse. And just like how smoothly they're able to pass I don't want to say like the power, but like that
the baton.
Yeah. How easily they're able to like pass the baton between each other because they know the other person's strengths. Because Maddie has never been at the scene of an emergency like this before. And Athena doesn't have the medical training necessary. So like it is a very complimentary thing for them to play off each other in that way. And it also allows Maddie to like gain more of that like this kind of independence that we've been talking about in the last episode, and just like kind of take charge-ness.
So I just had an idea. We were talking earlier about how like a theme or like a sub theme of the theme of like what makes an awful person is, like hurt people, like that saying.
Yeah.
And like talking about like at what point is someone redeemable, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really good comparison to shine a light on Gloria and how she handled being hurt versus Maddie.
Yeah.
And well, sorry, I'm trying to make everything about Buck. He's not in this episode, but both of them, well, it's their same childhood, right?
Right.
Well, same parents, a little different, but right, like so very not great childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's like even if you take away like, the abusive husband, it's already a hurt person. And the way that they handled being hurt is that they try and make sure that
other people
no one else is.
Get.
Exactly.
And I mean that really like goes to what Athena says at the end about how you Buckleys have like hearts of gold and whatever, which I thought was so cute because they did actually talk about Buck.
They did. That's true.
On their ride along a little bit, like as they're going to
Buck again.
We can always make it about Buck, okay? He has main character syndrome.
There's like two.
I know.
There's like these two comments that were interesting. There was like these two comments that were interesting. So like Athena like references like how they met. Well, not how they met, but how they've come to how he's grown on her because initially she did not. She was that. It was
they really clashed at the beginning.
She was not a fan,
and then we get an Abby mention.
Yes,
yeah.
So again, it's that thing of like Abby is still very much like in the consciousness. She is the ghost of 911.
She's haunting. Maddie is just very much like, I don't care about the age difference, but I just couldn't help but notice that she's just not here.
Not there.
She's not here.
But what we've also been saying about how Buck is like has been so like, I'm going to stay in this relationship to like prove to myself and to prove to everyone else that I can hack it. And Maddie does say like she's been impressed with him because it has been the longest relationship he's had. So like she recognizes that, but she also recognizes that it's not. So because I wonder in Maddie's mind. Yeah, I wonder if in Maddie's mind that Abby is one of these awful people because like how could you leave Buck?
Thank you. That's my question.
Yeah. That is the question.
I would wife him so fast. I would lock that shit down.
Eddie's gonna fight you for that.
Who's gonna fight me?
Eddie.
Okay, yeah. I'm
Eddie,
just saying.
You fight? We know he can.
I'm just saying. If I was in universe and I dated this man, that would be it. I wouldn't be leaving.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not stupid.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we can start transitioning over to Athena, but like just to wrap it all up, Maddie is really just like learning how to work in the job. And I think that's what a lot of season 2 is about, is because like season 1, we saw a lot of like how to deal with things on the job when you're not on the job. And season 2 so far is very much like the flip side of that coin, where it's like how to deal with the stuff that you have to deal with on the job to make sure that you do a good job. And I guess Maddie's kind of like playing catch up a little bit with that because she wasn't around in season 1. So she's learning how to do it. And how to compartmentalize, how to not let things get to her so she can offer the best care and help that she can, because she is a good person, and that's what good people do, I guess. Heart of Gold Buckley. Actually, one more thing and then we can move on. I just thought it was really interesting at when Gloria, just about before she has her accident, when she's in the car and she like goes down the little like closed ramp or whatever. What makes her crash the car is a literal black cat that crosses her path.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Like it's a literal black cat just like crossing the little road.
Karma.
Omens, signs, karma. Exactly. This show is so superstitious. It's hilarious. So
karma
that's
is
also
the cat
something
on
that
the street.
Right. So I mean, I think that's also something that we can continue to look forward and look further into, like, as we go through the series, because there are a lot of things about like omens. I know, Han, you brought that up in one of the episodes, and I can't remember which one at the moment. I don't know if it was Karma's a Bitch or another one.
It might have been.
Which would make sense because we're looking at the same writer for this. So it's like it's easy to see like how they
I think it was
line.
You know, Buck Abbey omens.
Yeah. That might have been during full moon then.
It might have been.
One of those, but I feel like these three, like full moon, Karma's a Bitch, and this episode are all like very tied together, even though Kristen didn't write the full moon one. But
no, I mean, if nothing else, just the Hen arc.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny to point out, and to also like pay attention to who says they believe in signs and who says they don't believe in signs, but maybe still believe in signs anyway. Interesting stuff. So I think that does.
You're not superstitious and you don't believe in signs, but like then you see the doppelganger of your dead wife, and you're like, "That's a sign."
Or, you know, dispatch sets on fire and you've been contemplating your entire life, and then your bestie at your work bestie says like, "That was a sign from God," and you're like,
"Yeah, said God has spoken."
It was. Yeah,
he was like, "You're right," and we get our Eddie girl is going to be okay shot.
That's one of my favorite shots in the entire series. Just like, yeah, you know,
it's great.
Yeah, even though that is, he is the one that says like he does not believe in signs. It just is so funny to me that I don't believe in signs. Signs aren't real. Follows all of the signs.
It's gotta like bop him in the head. Like
he's like, I don't believe in signs because all the signs lead to his gay thoughts.
Exactly.
That he's running away from. Or doesn't realize
he's running away from those, what is it, 22 million homophobic bees.
Yep. So rude of the bees, honestly.
So rude of the bees. Maybe we can't save the bees this time.
Maybe the bees are irredeemable. Maybe the bees are just bad bees.
They aren't sweet as honey, that's for sure.
Talk about a buzzkill.
Oh my god. Well, we really zapped that one.
It stings. Okay. That's enough. I gotta save some for later. I gotta save some.
Don't blow your entire bee load in this episode.
Athena, goddess of
Athena,
war and wisdom.
What is that song from?
What?
You know, she's a goddess, Athena. I don't know. I've seen it on TikTok. It's from.
That can't be a song.
It's a song.
That cannot be a song.
It's a song. I
the
think
goddess
it's like
of something
a musical.
Does sound familiar, but like the Athena thing.
It's like it's a musical theater song. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it's from the Percy Jackson musical or not, but Athena, I think her primary thing in this episode, so astute, so smart, is
so mentor,
so mother,
so mentor of her. She is essentially being mom mentor. That sounds like tormentor.
Sounds like.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Anyways, so she's very mom, she's very mentor, she is being the support system for everyone else in this episode. She's the support system for Maddie, for showing her how she does all the stuff. And she's a support system for Hen, for conferring with her later. That's kind of her main role in this episode. It's interesting how we can so often parallel Athena and Buck, and then like Bobby and Eddie, but we'll get to that another time. But specifically, I'm looking at like Athena and Buck right now, and how their roles for so much of this season so far have been, well, Athena in this episode specifically, but also like we've talked about Buck being the support system for others. So Athena is also doing the same role here, and I don't know what else to say about that. So someone spin off about Athena, Buck being support systems. They're paralleling each other. Yay.
They are. Didn't I say that in the last episode?
Yeah.
I feel like you did.
I'm just connecting it into this one.
Yeah, they're one people support systems. Like, I don't know how else to elaborate.
Okay.
They're just support systems in different ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess
she
we
imparts
just, like,
wisdom, and he imparts like actual like emotional support, or like physical being there for you, doing things for you, support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just tying it from the last one into this one. So,
but and just a quick nugget. He does.
Nugget.
Yeah. The golden snitch nugget. Anyway. Is she? Wow. Why did that? Why?
I mean,
why?
Like apropos of nothing. Except the Dementor, maybe. So, okay, I can follow that.
The Dementor. Can we make that a meme?
The Dementor. No, but I guess you don't really want to see Athena coming.
I could tell you the sidebar why I said that, but like, I mean, there's that, but there's another reason. But anyway, the little tidbit is like, you do see Buck also supportive here because, when Maddie's getting those like little threats from Gloria, he's like, do you want me to talk to her? Like a big, no, he's not a big brother. The little brother that he is, like, just ready. I don't know, like, trying to be supportive.
No, if he was a big brother, he would have been like, give me your phone, I'm going to talk to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also, I guess, kind of like the way their relationship works. It's like, because she is his she's kind of his parent.
And he's trying
she's
trying to like have this journey of autonomy and like standing on her own 2
freedom.
feet. And so he's trying to very much be respectful of that, while also letting her know that he is there to support her and help her.
Mm-hmm. It's very cute. And yeah, so Athena is just kind of like the queen of not letting things get to her on the job. I think we have talked about a lot of times she ends up letting a lot of her like some of her like personal stuff like bleed into her work stuff, but she's pretty good about like when she's on the job, she's unfazed. She's like, you can call me anything, you can do whatever to me. I'm just gonna like, after the funeral protest with what they saw, it's like, let's go to lunch. And if everyone's just like,
what do you mean?
After what you just saw that day, she's like, it's lunchtime. So it's that like she is good at that kind of compartmentalization, where the people that she's dealing with on the job, she just pushes it aside.
I will say
also,
I will say, because we're talking about the funeral protest, Karma's a bitch for that guy.
Yeah,
the racist guy. Karma's a real
diarrhea of the mouth. So funny to me.
So
how literal.
I mean, this was one of those very literal episodes, just all around.
Yeah,
very heavy-handed.
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
they're gonna be like, here you go. This is exactly what's on the tin. I did also, just complete aside, I don't know if we need to keep this in here or not, but like when in the scene where they were like, Maddie meets Bobby, and at the end of that protest call and everything, they said it's lunchtime. Though that was like an evening shadow, okay? That was not lunchtime anymore. half of their faces were in shadow. Like the sun was coming in from like this right here. I was
Then
like,
maybe
that
it's
is
lunchtime for the shift they're on.
okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
No, I went back and I did.
Yeah, what time do you eat lunch, Rachel?
We're not talking about me.
Sorry.
Okay, that's fair. But at the
And
beginning of the scene,
I work regular hours and I tend to eat lunch at like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I do too.
yeah, my dad was like, hands on her lunch hour, it's 4:00. And I'm like,
I save my lunch for the end of the day because then I come back and I'm like, only 2 hours left. Instead of like, I have half the day
Me
left.
too. I start from 9 and I think I go at 1 or 2. Anyway, moving on.
Anyways, but at the beginning of the scene, the sun was high above. So like they did, it was a change in lighting. The only other thing I think I really have was like, Athena also gave Maddie the advice of like, and the advice to the people who were having the funeral. Like, the best thing I can tell you is try to ignore it. So there's a lot of like, try to ignore and maybe it'll go away. Kind of like what you would do with bullies, which was also a theme that we saw in Karma's a Bitch. So like, that's the advice that you keep getting, but sometimes
I don't think that's
sometimes
the
you
best
can't ignore it.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's trying to like push it out of your mind, try to ignore it. Sometimes it can't be ignored. And then Athena was also just like doing her typical smart Athena stuff and kind of clocked Maddie's experiences with her husband when they were in the car. And so that was a nice like bonding moment for them there. Because it still showed that Athena was very like supportive of her and like someone that Maddie could really look up to. I think we'll move right on into Hen then.
Hen.
Hen.
Henrietta. I feel
This
like
is,
anytime that's what I'll be saying. Just full government name.
Full government name.
It's the only thing she's ever done wrong in her life, but like it's a pretty
milk
big
it.
one. So
Yeah, they don't give her a
it's
break.
still here's the thing I wanted to complain about earlier.
Oh, okay.
This is what pisses me off about this arc the most, is that they're not giving me like a good reason that she did it. Like there's no she has no explanation. And then there's no like personal growth. There is no like furthering her character in it. So it's
just
like
bad thing happens.
We're
bad
here
thing happens,
and she's
bad
having
thing
the
happens.
same exact conversation with Karen that she had the last time we saw them talk about this. So I'm just like, why are we in this loop? Like, shouldn't she have figured out by now, or like seen a therapist to help her figure out like why she did this, so she has a better explanation than, I'm sorry, I was stupid, I was selfish, but I love you. Like, it just it makes no sense, and it doesn't fit with Hen's character at all. So it just makes the whole arc for me just seem like
we didn't know what to do with you. Yeah,
a little bit. Like they were like, we need to have some tension here, right?
Yeah,
I feel like they could have done it without the cheating, or they could have like made it so it made sense. Like if she still had feelings for her, but it doesn't seem like she has feelings for her, so it just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. So
yeah, I think my gripe about this, because it seems to rehash exactly where, like, it rehashes the fallout that we see in Karma's a Bitch right after, Hen cheated and everything. But like by the end of the first season, there is still some tension, and we see Hen and Karen kind of like still at odds, but Karen agrees to like take her back and they try to work on, but we don't see any of that progress being made. And I think the only reference to that we see with Hen and Karen is when Hen calls when she's buried under the rubble in the hotel, and we don't even get to see like Karen's worry or relief when she like hears that message and then finds out that everything's okay anymore. So it's like, it's kind of like they took a little step backwards because it seemed like they were in the process of like moving forward and like moving on or trying to figure out where to go from there. And it kind of like took them back to where they already had been. And maybe it's because we didn't get to see a lot of like development on that front. But it's almost a little disappointing because we have kind of like the same beats going on where it's like in last season, Ava served them with papers for custody. And this one, Eva
she's still trying to do the same thing. Like,
yeah, even though she doesn't have anything to stand on.
No.
So she found the next best thing, which was Denny's other biological parent, and just kind of like dropped this on their doorstep in a really terrible way. Like, if you want to talk about awful people, she's doing it in the intent to hurt Hen and her family, and there's like no redemption there.
Also, do we get follow-up on this father before we see him again in season 6? 6?
I think it's 6.
No,
I don't think
weird.
So.
I don't think so, because that's where I was confused when they brought him up in the season 6 storyline. Why it was so weird for him to...
Was that Kristen Rydell, too? She was show running.
Imagine. But yeah, no, I thought it was weird how they brought him back, and then it's almost like they had to redo that whole storyline, that whole introduction, and it was
they did it in a way that didn't make sense.
Yeah,
for the character we had been introduced to.
Yeah, because he said he would take their leads.
Yeah,
and
I guess their lead was, "We're just gonna ignore you."
Yeah, because
which also
pretend you don't exist.
Which also seems really out of character for them because like. It doesn't seem like, obviously they tried to keep Eva away from Denny because Eva is no good, very bad influence just in general. So like that's understandable, but it seems really out of character that they would keep Denny away from his biological father. I mean, I know they go into like their insecurities about, you know, them not being Denny's bio parents or anything like that.
But he assuages those fears.
Yeah.
And then it seems like, okay, like there's respect here. And then we can, you know, respect him and not be afraid. So it just is so weird that like we went through all of that to like
and then had to take a step
follow
back
up
again
on it until
4
seasons later. And then it's just done in such a weird way.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah,
it doesn't really follow up with what they've built here or introduced here.
You know, I feel like we should find out if that was a Kristen, right? I mean, yeah, she is a showrunner during that season, but I feel like we really need to see if she really was the writer for that episode.
Rachel always has the wiki up,
so
I do. I have it right now.
In my note, like I was like, why is she always trying to repair the the relationship between parent and biological parent and like
it's a found family show. Yeah. It's literally a found family show. It's so weird. And like this would have been a case where like not repairing or introducing a bio parent, you know, biological family member would have made sense. Like they set it up to make it make sense and have it be a possible good thing. And then they dropped it, reintroduced it in such a weird fucking way.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like interesting. It looks like Nathaniel was reintroduced in 609 Red Flag, which was written by Nicole Barraza Keem. And then when Denny is like secretly talking to his biological father, that's in episode 10 in a flash. That's the lightning strike episode.
Who wrote that? That wasn't Kristen, was it?
No, that was our favorite one, Carlos Cotto.
I had a feeling. Oh man.
So
no one got us.
If no one got us, we know when Carlos Cotto got us.
So true.
So I think that is something that we will continue to see with Kristen Rydell's work, especially as she takes over showrunning for 5 and 6. There's like this interesting emphasis on like the familial dynamic, shall we say. And it'll be interesting getting into that later as well. And just kind of like look, so we can look at some of these episodes, like Karma's a Bitch and this episode, Awful People, and we can kind of like extrapolate a lot of that stuff that we'll see, like the kind of like influence effects of like blanketing over an entire season sort of thing, because as showrunner she would be more, you know, like this is where the storyline is going and it's up to the individual writers to like carry out that vision sort of thing. So double-edged sword, I guess. I'm not sure we'll ever be able to know like how much influence is like, okay, you have to hit this beat specifically, right. or if it's like make something about this happen. I mean, you know,
it's just one of those things where I'm like, coincidences don't happen coincidentally.
There is no throwaway line in 911. I will continue to say.
Sometimes I'm like, I wonder if Tim Minear and whoever came up with this cheating storyline like wake up in cold sweat every night because they're like, damn. But also maybe not, because he's also anyway.
I mean, I feel like the cheating storyline is like long forgotten, except for like
it's not I mean
when Hen gives Buck, but I mean like in the story, like in their relationship, like it's not something
yeah.
But as of right now, I guess knock on wood, please don't bring it back up in season 8.
It does have just like very long-reaching consequences. So even though like the cheating part is done, like it still is kind of like very much felt in a lot of Hen and Karen's story, which I understand. Sometimes it's a little frustrating. But like if they're able to move on from like the cheating part of it, I guess. I don't know. It's just like it always feels like it's either the fostering stuff going wrong or it's the consequences of something relating to the stuff that happened with Eva, you know, still hanging over their heads sometimes. That's the only problem with that. But like I understand, but also like you know.
I just wonder if they know that this is one of the most hated. Because I know there are others.
They've gotta know. It's not like people are quiet about it.
So a lot of Hen's story in this episode, which kind of gets introduced very far into the episode, and I think 911 does that kind of frequently actually, because she is like the biggest like character arc of the episode, and we see like her in the picnic with Karen and Michael like a quarter of the way into the episode. And I think Hen is just really, with this return of Ava, she's really contemplating like that existential crisis that she was having at the end of season 1, you know, like, am I a good person? Am I a terrible person because of the terrible things that I've done? And then you also, I guess in this situation with Hen, you have a good person who's done bad things, and then you have Eva who's like a bad person who does bad things. And so they're kind of sitting at slightly opposite ends of the spectrum, but they end up like doing some not great things, but it goes back to that intent, I guess, because Ava is doing it to get back at Hen or to get Hen back, which she thinks is going to be the same thing. And that is not how that happens. And so Hen's just really wrestling with all of it. And I think she's looking for that reassurance. Well, hold on.
This is my problem with it, because it's like, you just said what the motivation was, the reason why Ava, whatever, how the fuck you pronounce it, the reason that she was doing it. I know. But like, tell me Hen's reason. What's her motivation?
That's
where it falls apart for me.
Yeah, it's this like internal existential thing that Hen is going through with herself, but then she's also, so it's like she wants to she wants to know that she is a good person. I don't know if she's like trying to find out that she's actually not as good of a person as she thinks she is or what, because she keeps looking for reasons that Nathaniel is a bad person also. Like she's looking for confirmation bias, and it seems counterintuitive because like I would think that the way Hen works, like we kind of saw
she
how
does
she
this all the fucking time. Now that I'm thinking about it, because like, well, when we get there, like in season 3 with the ambulance and the girl, I forgot her name, because she's going to say, "I'm the one that did it. I'm this bad person who killed her, even though it wasn't her fault." Yeah, I don't know. It's like she's just looking for.
It's like she's looking for confirmation that she's not as good of a person as she thinks that she is. Which is this weird, like, sort of confirmation bias thing. And she kind of, like, projects that onto, like, Nathaniel because she keeps trying to find things that make him a bad person. But it turns out he's kind of a Boy Scout now that he's gotten cleaned up and everything like that. So, like, that should give her hope. Like, she has hope because she's not a bad person also. But, like, she can't see that in herself as well, and it's just kind of confusing because she is a good person. Because she's, like we said with Maddie, when she's at Eva's and she does the same thing that okay, maybe this can be the scene dissection when she goes to Eva's apartment. She basically does the same thing, like she trails after Eva and she shows up at the apartment and stuff like that, but she is given the choice and she chooses the right thing to do. Yeah. So, like, I would feel like that would make her, like...
Well, no, because all she's thinking about is that she hesitated.
She tends to focus on these very seemingly infinitesimal moments that she, like, really blows up into, like, this is why I am a bad person.
But, yeah,
and
but
that's not the case.
But then that's the question. It's like, what if I had hesitated?
Yeah,
that's
but she
one
keeps
of those
living
like,
in these what ifs.
It's her existential crisis that she's going through.
Yeah, it's just kind of like weird. I don't really know what else to say about that, but like it does turn out that, like, for all intents and purposes, Nathaniel is a good guy. Actually, like, he gets this chance for redemption, but it's like, Hen, why don't you get it through your head? Like, that means that you can have redemption too. And I think she's just so, like, focused on the potential for her to do something, like, her bad choices, that she really magnifies them and is like, oh, I must not be a good person. But it's like, no, you are, because you didn't mean to hurt people. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's kind of what makes someone a bad person or a good person, is whether you intend to hurt someone. But, like, by definition, you know, our definition of what, like, an awful person is, like, someone who is, like, selfish and, like, prejudicial. And Hen calls herself, like, stupid, selfish, and weak for what she did with Ava. But, like, it doesn't make her an awful person.
Yeah.
And it's really sweet that, like, even Denny knows, like, Hen is a good person because he asks if she's going to fix everything like she fixes people at work. And I feel like that's all the validation she could need is her son right there telling her that, like, he recognizes that she does good stuff. Like, isn't that, like, what every parent wants to hear from their kid? Like, that you're kind of a hero and you save people, and, you know? Like, I feel like a boon. That's what I was thinking of. I feel like that would be a boon for her, but
yeah, it's
not. And she just, like, is so down on herself. And it's like one bad action does not a bad person make.
Hey! Where's the fire?
Speaking of actions, why don't we just get into that scene dissection where Hen is deciding to save Eva. So it's like, so quickly, a couple things that I've noticed. I mean, it plays out the same way as like how she is driving to Eva's place during during full moon, creepy as fuck, and it's Hen talking to someone on the phone before she ultimately goes to make her very bad, no good decision. So like in full moon, the moon lore episode, that's what I'm going to call it because I hate calling it
Buck Moon.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, our Buck Moon.
Oh yeah, Buck Moon. So in the Buck Moon episode,
that's what we named it.
With Buck Moon, she's talking to Athena, and it's you know, and in this case, she's talking to Karen, and it's like it's already Hen kind of playing off, or just hiding the fact of like what she's doing or what her intent is. It's already shady.
Oh, which
I thought
made me so mad.
Like I was like, oh no, are you gonna do the same thing again? But now that you brought up like the Denny part with like, oh, are you gonna fix it? Like maybe like then I should have clocked it as, oh, are you gonna fix the situation? Like do something that you should have done in the first place instead of what you did in the other episode.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what she did the last time that she saw her, is like she showed up, she was like, I'm the reason this is happening. I'm going to fix it. Like, I'm not going through the lawyers.
Yeah.
I'm going to go myself.
Yeah, so why did they rehash it like this? Well, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, because the world may never know.
The last time that, like, Hen and Ava had a confrontation was when Hen went over to Ava's and this is what you were talking about this scene still, and how it was like so powerful that like Hen took like
it was supposed to be a cathartic release for her, and then she still comes back like a fucking cockroach.
Yeah, Ava, right?
Talk like, about yes. Sorry, let me clarify, Ava. Talk about what's the phrase? Beating a dead horse. Beating a dead horse. Which yikes!
No.
Next episode.
No, 2 episodes. Like you said, Sil, everything about this scene kind of rehashes or visually parallels to the scene in 107, Buck Moon, Full Moon, whatever we want to call it, when Hen originally went over to Eva's. Like she was in the car, she was kind of looking out the window to the apartment. It's a lot of the same shots, and we get Hen knocking on the door and opening the door to Eva. Well, Eva doesn't answer the door this time, but it's a lot of that same visual language, right? With all of these different shots, except in 107, we talked so much about the lighting and the moon washing over Hen and Eva. And it was very blue, very cool lighting because moon, obviously. This is very different in lighting. It's so much warmer. There's a very strong yellow orangey light going on. Like when Hen stops and thinks about her decision to like, am I going to help Ava? Am I going to just kind of like let it go? She's still kind of like in this doorway. So like very much like 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing. Like half a mind to do this, half a mind to let it be. But she is washed, I guess, in this like very yellowy, very bright light from the hallway at the apartment, which is just so complete opposite of what we saw in the original scene. And it's very sunny, it's warm. So it's a visual tie to what Hen said at the very end of 107, where you have to reckon with what you did in under the full moon in the light of day. So like this is her light of day sort of moment, I guess, right? And even inside the apartment, all of the lights are on. So like inside Ava's apartment, like all of the lights are yellowy. Like I think in the original scene in last season, either the lights weren't on where it was just like I think the lights weren't on. I think it was just moonlight illuminating that entire scene where they had their like moment. So we talk a lot about like the rehashing sort of stuff, but I think this was very strong in the being in the same visual language, but also showing how it's different now because she's in this bright yellow light. She's in the light of the sun. Well, not the sun, but she's in like this warmer light, and she has a better understanding of kind of herself, and doing the right thing instead of doing the wrong thing. So that's mostly why I wanted to talk about this scene. Was the lighting. So whoever did the lighting, love you. Fan of the cinematography in this episode for sure. In that scene specifically.
I think the last thing that I do want to talk about when it comes to this was her hesitation. Because like I said, like because I do remember how I think I reacted, or my thought process while watching the episode for the first time. So one, why are you going back there? Oh, okay, so she's overdosing on whatever it was. Okay, now you're hesitating. You're not going to save her. So like at that point, I'm like, okay, where are you going with her character? Because like if she had just walked out, because she had all of the opportunity to walk out. And again, going back to that thread about fixing it could mean different things. Fixing it could have been just letting Eva die.
It would have been easier for her and Karen and Denny and everything. Like, let's be real, that was the easier option, easier road to take. But
then she would have been, I mean, I don't know if there were fingerprints or anything. Like, I really had to think about this. I'm like, could she get arrested and found out? Could there be an investigation? I thought that's where they were going. But then when like she actually saved her, I was like, oh, okay, good. First of all, good. But yeah, no, like, I mean, if she hesitated and just let her die, like, I just thought, like, what is wrong with this character? Because I like her a lot. But yeah. And then her, I don't know if you guys want to add to that. Just to add that.
I was going to, I think, bring up what you were just about to bring up with what she says.
The line where she's just like, you know, like once Eva is finally like aware of her surroundings and she's like, oh, why is she doing here? Or what is she doing here? And all of that, and how like it's revealed that Hen saves her. Like Hen's like mic drop is really great. She's like, I save awful people every day. And then like the whole like calling her parole officer, and that, because that is the way to fix it.
Gave her a zinger last time too.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
She's good.
She's good at that. And I think it's so interesting too that like, right? So like when she's on the phone with Karen, when she's in the car, she's like, she feels nothing but rage and it's boiling over. But when she says all of this to Ava, she says she feels no hatred. She doesn't feel anything toward her anymore. So I think that rage that Hen was feeling is directed at herself. So we finally get to see Hen break this gravitational pull that Eva has over in her life. Like it was kind of broken when she did that confrontation the last time. But I think this was like the final cut of like the cut of the final string for her. Like, because she is able to not let it get to her anymore. She feels no hatred. It's just apathy, you know? It isn't love. It isn't hate. It's just indifference. Like,
I was just going to say that.
So yeah.
Welcome to this episode.
I forget
sponsored
that you
by
existed.
Taylor Swift.
Wish we were sponsored by Taylor Swift.
Oh my God. Could you imagine? Maybe this episode title should be, I forgot that you existed. Because we also kind of forget that this episode exists sometimes.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm just kidding.
To my ear, she said it here first. This is your bestie right here.
No! I want to be best friends. But yeah, so the only reason I can think that like Hen is telling Karen like she has so much rage in her is because it's directed mostly at herself, because it's no longer directed like, and this goes back to her taking like accountability and stuff. But I think this goes further than that, because she's like trying to grapple with like, am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Someone give me the, like, I need a sign. But I think the sign is like what she made of it. Like, she had the opportunity to do something bad. She did something good instead. That should be sign enough. And she shouldn't be mad at herself. She's on her road to redemption, but she needs to redeem herself.
She needs to
It has to come from inside.
redeem herself again, because again, this story doesn't die.
Yep.
She needs to just go to therapy. That's what she needs.
Well, that didn't work.
Yeah, how
either.
come she doesn't get mandated therapy?
She got mandated therapy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the future.
yeah, in the future.
So anyway, not much to report in Slow Burn, unfortunately, because as my tag, that won't be, that you guys can't see, but my tag for this episode says, nobody, boo. There is one thing that I wanted to note. I don't know that this really goes here, but it's just the shot at the end when they're all at the table eating in the
They're next to each
firehouse.
other.
And so they have all the no lines, no names people on the right, and then, you know, the 118 that we know on the left.
The core
But there's
four.
someone, Bobby is at the head of the table, and then Eddie's at the other end of the table. So, and he's
who is
sitting
directly
next
on
to,
there.
he's sitting next to, well, yes, that.
Yeah.
Yes, sitting next to their partners, but also I just saw it as like a metaphor for like Eddie, you know, moving into a closer, more involved part of that group from
Yeah.
the nameless.
He
Those poor
has
people
a
have been working there
name.
for years, and Eddie shows up day
They're
one,
just not-
washboard abs.
They're just not part
and they're
of the
like,
clique.
yeah.
No.
I know. Could you imagine how cliquey the 118 is? It's like, oh my god.
Everyone
So
else
funny.
must hate them, like literally. If you're working on shift with them,
Yeah, it's like, oh, Bobby
They'd be
has
like-
favorites.
they'd be like,
Oh my god.
why does
I would be
literally no
talking
one else
shit
talk to
about
us?
them, that's for sure. Because, like, think about it. Like, if I'm not in that circle and I don't really know who they are, and like I just think that they're pretentious because they're with like the head boss or whatever, like I'm just like,
Like, suck up.
but yeah, yeah, I would probably say some shit about them, and then I'd be like, the fuck is going on with those two over there? Why are they always like
Attached at the
this?
hip.
Attached? Yeah, that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I don't know what no one saw that. We don't need to
Sorry.
describe to anyone
I'm sorry.
what that was.
Could you point out what episode that's in? Asking for a friend.
I think you just have to find that in fan fiction. Currently.
But yeah.
But yeah.
Anyway,
I did love the way everybody was sitting at the table, where you have again, here's something.
I'm glad
like
you guys
Eddie
noticed that,
and
because
Bobby.
I was just like, all right, episode's over.
Yeah.
I was trying to find something with Buck and Eddie so badly.
I was too.
So
they
badly.
barely interacted.
I mean, like, they're working together doing their wordless thing, but it's like you barely get any shots of it.
Yeah.
So,
But it's just
Well-
more evidence of Eddie and Bobby being paralleled to each other, because they are the heads of the table, and then you have right next to them, so immediately to their, well, it would be Bobby's right, but Eddie's left. You have Athena, but you have Buck, so you have another Athena and Buck parallel as well. Interesting
I feel like we need a
choices.
spreadsheet now.
which could be nothing.
Which could mean nothing.
Shout out SJ, I guess.
Yeah,
Owns that now.
Oh yeah.
which is another great little fun podcast. I don't
Brilliant
know.
name.
Fantastic name. So catchy.
This is a great name. Yeah.
Also talking about queer media. Go check it out.
Yay. Cool. I think that's it for this episode.
Remember, don't investigate an abandoned restaurant.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you.
Thank you for listening to the Buddy System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We're at Buddy System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddy System is a Nerd Virgin media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content and our Discord community.
Catch you next time, and don't forget,
bring a buddy with you.